Hello, I'm going to show you how to collect data for RQ235 for the graffiti project. So before I get into the actual app, I want to show you what we're actually looking at here. So when you go out and collect graffiti, as you'll do for this class, you will have a designated block group wherein you will go around and find any instances of graffiti. And what we're looking at here is what we're going to call a canvas. So what we have is a street sign, which is going to represent our canvas, and what we have on it are instances of graffiti. So the canvas itself is the sign, right? And then the instances of graffiti are separate. That's going to be important to note as we go through the app here. So, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to open up my phone, and I'm going to open Epicollect5, the app that you should have already downloaded onto your phone, and you should have already added the graffiti project. So I'm going to just go to the graffiti project, open it up, and the first thing that you're going to see is that you might get a note that the form has been updated. Just hit OK. It'll update the forms really quickly, and then what you are left with is a screen that says canvas. It'll say no entries found. You haven't put anything into the project yet. So right here on the top right, we're going to hit add entry, and it should ask if you want to use the location services. We'll allow while using the app because we are going to be collecting GPS data. And the first question it asks you is this a test? So you might want to go through on your own and practice the form and make sure that you understand all the questions. If you were going to do that, you would want to make sure that you were checking yes on this, because that just lets us know later on that that data is not useful for any type of interpretation, and that we're going to use only the ones that we consider not tests. So we're actually in the field right now, so I'm going to go ahead and say no, this is not a test, this is real data, and we're going to go on to the next step. The next step is going to ask you about the location of the canvas, so the location of our street sign here. And it's going to ask me, are you at the canvas? Yes or no. And because I have access and I can get it right up to it, I'm going to say yes. If, for instance, it was behind a fence, or if you had to climb up something to get to it, we're not asking you to get that far in depth for it, so you would have to say no, that you didn't have access to the canvas itself. Then you're going to go ahead and hit update location, and it will automatically access your GPS and get a location note. Note that at the very bottom, it has a mark that says accuracy, and we're going to try to aim for a number under 15 if possible, and you can just do that by hitting update location a couple of times. It doesn't seem like I'm going to be able to get better than 23 at the moment, but that's okay for what we need at the moment. Go ahead and hit next. The next thing that we're going to do is we need to take a photo of the canvas, and there are going to be two photos for this step. The first one is a general photo of the area, so we want to get more than just the sign. We want to get the idea that the sign is in Ravenna Park and what is around it. So here I'm going to hit select take. It's going to open up the camera, and I'm going to step back pretty far away from the sign here so that I can get everything that I want inside of the frame. And when we take our photos, we want to keep a couple of general principles in mind. So when we take a photo of something like this, we want to make sure that we are keeping our lines as clean as possible. That means both our horizontal and our vertical want to be as unskewed as possible. So you can imagine if I stepped over here, just take a picture from over here, I'm kind of at an angle to the street sign, which is going to make one side seem a little bigger and one side seem a little smaller. So when I take these photos, I want to make sure that I'm really rectilinear, really straight in front of it, and I want to get as much of the background in here as possible. So I'm going to step well back and grab a photo. So now I have a photo of the general area, and I'm going to go ahead and click next. And now here it wants a photo of our entire canvas. This one is more focused on the street sign itself, so I can get a little bit closer. Again, we're going to go ahead and select take. We'll open up my camera. And snap a photo. I'll use that photo. It should automatically load in, and I'm going to hit next. The next thing that's going to ask us is the day and autofill to today's date. Go ahead. Sorry, looks like we had overlapping production schedules with Extreme Home Makeover. What he means to say is to select what property type your canvas is found within. Is it commercial, industrial, public, government, residential, or maybe something else? Remember to scroll down and select whether the property is in use, abandoned, or if you can't tell. Then he asks you to note whether the area has any surveillance that might deter a rider, so dogs, cameras, or even just a lot of hustle and bustle. And here we're in a public park, so there are people around, that would probably deter people during daylight hours from doing any graffiti, so I'm going to say yes and hit next. And it's going to ask me to select all the appropriate methods of surveillance here. And so I know that there are sometimes people around, but there's no alarms, there's no guards, there's no dogs, there's no lights, there's nothing of that. And so we're going to go ahead and say people and hit next. And our next one is going to ask about where the canvas is located. Is it in an alley? Is it in the street, trackside, on the highway, etc., etc., etc. And so here we are on a street, so we're going to select street, and then we can go ahead and select next. Our next question is asking us, what is the canvas? So here, we have a street sign, and so we can scroll down until we find the sign. Hey, me again. Now he's asking about the material of your canvas. Select any and all that apply. Metal in the case of this sign here. So the sign is made out of metal. And next is following that, it asks about evidence of graffiti removal. You might not be able to see this very clearly. So here, for instance, you can see gray paint that probably is covering up previous instances of graffiti. In fact, you can see a sticker here that's been painted over. So I'm going to say yes, there is evidence of graffiti removal. There used to be other graffiti under it, it was painted over, and now there's a new round of graffiti on top of that. Our next, hit next, and we go on to viewing potential, where it asks us, how likely are you to see this graffiti? Is it very likely, medium likeliness, or very low likelihood, like you had to crawl through someplace to get it and it's not meant to be seen by the public? This is pretty easily recognizable. It's on a street sign that already draws your eye. So I'm going to say that the viewing potential here is high. I'll go ahead and select next. And now we are given accessibility. So how accessible is the actual canvas that we're at? And it's a street sign, so we find that it's at street level. We didn't have to go through a gate. We didn't have to cross through any bushes or vegetation to get here. There's no barrier, nothing like that. We didn't have to climb. So we are just going to go ahead and select next. And now it's going to ask us if we have any notes about it. We don't need to add anything here, so we are going to go ahead and select next, and we have reached the end of our canvas. So we'll go ahead and select save entry, and we've entered all of the information about the street sign, right? But we haven't put in any information about the artwork itself, the graffiti that we are interested in on the street sign. So here, you'll notice that we now have an entry under our canvas that has the date and what it is in the sign, and you see a little green button next to it. This is how we're going to put the graffiti into our canvas. We have a sub-form for that. So you're going to hit that button, and you're going to have to hit, again in the top right, add entry. And this is where we're going to add the actual instances of graffiti that we find on our canvas. So here we have 3 instances. We have this little picture right here, we have a tag right here, and we have a tag right here. So in this case, we don't have any duplicates. So what it's asking for, a number of instances, is if there was this tag multiple times on this panel, we might want to put it there multiple times. But here we only have 1 instance, so we can go ahead and move on to next. And it's going to ask us to take a photo of the graffiti. So here again, we select take, and this one, we already have the information about the sign. Now we're just interested in the artwork on the sign, so we can be much closer. And we're going to keep those same photography principles in mind. We want it to be as straight as possible. And we're going to focus right now on this tag right here. Make sure I get the entire thing in frame. Good. I'll use that photo. We'll go on to the next one, which is going to be date recorded. Again, it will autofill. Next, we'll be asked about the dimensions of the artwork on the sign. And it's going to ask for it in centimeters approximately. Now, you can either bring a measuring tape or something out with you, or then you should go over to your Measure app, select that, and you should be able to, using the get a measurement for an approximate length and height for width and height. So I've got 41 centimeters there. Okay. 41. Width. We get 18 centimeters. Next. And it's going to ask us about what type of graffiti we're looking at. This right here is we call it a tag. So we'll select tag, and we'll move on to next. And it's going to ask us about the technique. is it done with spray paint? Is it done with a marker? Is it done with a brush, roller, a incision, or other? This is done with a marker, so we'll select marker and move on to next. And it's going to ask us about the marker type. And this would be likely a paint stick or a chalk marker. We'll select that and move on to next. The next question is going to ask us about how many colors we see in this instance of graffiti. And in this one, there's only one color. It's a nice little violet purple color. So we'll select one, move on to next. And this is where it asks us which color we're actually looking at. And I will select violet and move on to the next one. Now it's going to ask us about the nature of the graffiti. So is it an image? Is it text? Is it both? This one is just text, so I will just select text and move on to our next panel. It's going to ask us whether this text can be transcribed, whether you can read it or not. And this is actually pretty legible. We can get a pretty good idea of what it says, so we're going to say yes. Even if we can guess, we're still going to give it a good try. So we'll say yes, and we'll hit next, and it'll ask us about the nature of the message. So is it a writer writing their name? Is it a comment on the society? Is it like a social commentary? Is it political? Is it sexual? Or is there some other thing going on? And this is just somebody writing their name. It's what we call a writer. So we'll select next. And it gives us a little note here to say if you are uncertain about any characters or numbers, we're going to use the ampersand as a placeholder so that when we go back through, we can know that that wasn't easily legible as we were doing the data quiz. And here we'll type in the transcription, which appears to be S, A, W, and then this last one, I'm going to say that it's a G, but if we weren't sure, we could put in an ampersand, and we don't know what it is, but I'm pretty happy with it being a G, so I'm going to leave it as S-E-W-G, and I will go to next. I'm just going to ask for any notes, so describe what I see. Is there any story here? Are there any conflicts? Is there anything going on? And right now, not really. It was recently cleared. Okay. And that'll help me later on if I want to go back and think about what I was thinking about when I took this instance of graffiti. And then we're going to hit Save Entry. And now we've added one single instance of graffiti from our panel into our canvas. Now, if we were going to do the entire thing right here, we would go on and do this little picture over here as another add entry in this subform. We would have let's say G, as well as our 1312 over here. And so you would end up with 3 entries for graffiti for your one canvas that is assigned. To finish the entire assignment, to turn in your homework, the last thing that you need to do is you'll notice a little button at the top right that is a cloud with an up arrow. It's going to upload your data to the project database. And so you'll hit that, you'll hit upload data, and it will upload your entries. And if you'd like, you can wait to do this on Wi-Fi. This will stay on your phone until you submit it. So you don't need to do this in the field if you don't have great service at the moment. And then you'll go and you'll upload your photos as well. And this might take a minute as the photos are usually a little bit bigger than the data itself. And there we go. All of our entries have been successfully uploaded. We've successfully put in one canvas for our graffiti project. So it's pretty straightforward. There shouldn't be too much hassle with using the app or getting the homework done. And as you get used to doing it and getting used to using the app, it should go a lot quicker. So thank you for joining me in collecting some graffiti data, and I hope that you guys have fun in the field.